see it better there, but if you can't read it from there, it says, the text that's on her chest says, Rosamond decided to pull an owl-nighter. That's kind of a big fan of puns, and so I love that. One of the things, this is kind of a spoiler alert for the intro that we put in the editor's note. One of the things that I thought was interesting and kind of conversations that came up when myself and Daniel were here, Daniel Wave, just one of our editors, and James, one of our editors back here, and two of our editors that aren't here, Sequoia and Rebecca, but they're here in spirit. And we had this conversation about some poems by a poet named Matthew Lipman that are in the issue, and one of them is this kind of exploration of like his daughter listening to music, and then this kind of idea of voyeurism and so on. And we were having this conversation, and I was talking about having a daughter similar age as the poet. My daughter's 6 years old. And I was saying, well, I don't know if I like this poem. It makes me feel uncomfortable, this kind of concept or this juxtaposition of like kind of how our daughters or our children's or just women's bodies become sexualized at such a young age. And I remember saying how, I'm not sure if I can access the poem because of how it was hitting me so personal. And Daniel, in our conversation, was like, well, that's what's part of what makes it good, and what part of what makes, and that really resonated with me as I kind of continue to chew and on that and grapple with it, and how that's, I think, and I'm biased being a poet and somebody that studies poetry, but I think that's one of the special things about poetry, in that some reason the way that the form is or isn't, and something about the way the language is crafted and isn't crafted, somehow allows it to access these things that make us feel uncomfortable, but that make them artful and make them resonate with us and be able to access them in a particular way that I'm not sure if other forms can do. And poetry, for some reason, has access to that thing, and it's important for us to be having some of these uncomfortable conversations. And I think that that's one of the purposes. I can't really come up with, I just got done teaching a literature class, and one of the things we struggle with as a class is trying to define what makes a poem and what doesn't. And that's obviously a really difficult, complex conversation. And so I'm not ready to come up with a definition, but I think that one of the criteria of what sometimes poetry does, or often can do, is engage us in conversations that are not super comfortable, that make us grapple with things, and that we can either access this sense of otherness or marginality, or sometimes things that are really personal to us that we don't usually like to look at, in a very concise, short, not always short, but in a concise way that makes us really grapple with it. And so I appreciated that conversation that we had. And we ended up publishing 2 of his poems, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And so I think about that, and I was thinking about how that works throughout the collection in general, about a lot of what the poems, I always say this at the launches, that for some reason it kind of comes together under a theme, and it feels like there's a lot of that in this, where we're able to access these conversations about otherness, about difference, about things that make us uncomfortable or things that are making us angry in the current moment, but are able to do it through a poem, and we might not have had that same conversation, or we might not have sat and contemplated that without these experiences. And so I appreciate that, and that's one of the things that why I kind of selfishly am an editor, so I can continue to have that experience over and over and over again. And so I appreciate that. And so I'm going to introduce Ken after I've kind of rambled for a little bit. One of the things I wanted to say about Ken when I was introducing him, and I just kind of said this to him before, was that when I first moved to Austin, I reached out to Borderlands because I didn't have any kind of community. And so I just kind of wanted to be engaged in the poetry community and said, oh, come to our next launch. And at that launch, Ken was reading with Lori Young. And I mean, it was just kind of like, this is awesome. I fell in love with Austin poetry. And I've been blessed to have, he sent poems several times throughout my 5 years here. And every time I'm always just like, yeah, we have to have Ken in the issue, so it's like a given. And we have 2 of his books back there. We have Trace, which is one of his kind of collected or selected works. And we also have In the Kingdom of Birds, which won the Texas Institute of Letters Award in 2013. He's translated from German, Wilhelm Anazinos, is it right?
Yeah.
Novel, Woman Softly Singing, which is now in search of a publisher, and his MA in German language and literature is from the University of Texas at Austin. And we have a poem of his, and we're going to hear more of his poetry just right now. Thanks, come up.
It's so good to see a full house. You know, Whitman says that great poetry needs great audiences, and so you're out there, and that that will not go unnoticed by me, for sure. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. You know, there was there's a quick story, which there may be a lesson in, you decide. There was a young poet, just starting out, and an older poet who had been around for a while. And the young poet told him, the older poet, he said, "I've just written something new and tremendous. It's never been done before." And the older poet said, "Huh, that's funny. Where I come from, all of us had mothers and fathers." So, you know, there may be a lesson in that, actually. But I will say that I think to support the young poets' view, I think all poets are experimentalists, and we should have that right to take something that's been done and just do everything we can to change it. And so, so I'm going to read today. I'm so happy choosing to be in Borderlands. I think it's easily the equal or better than any poetry journal in its class in the United States. I just noticed that Ryan published Matthew Lipman, and he is a really well-known name, and it's nice to be in such good company. So I'm going to read the title poem. Let me check the time here. Okay. I'm going to read the title poem that appeared in the issue, and it's called "If Only." It has a line. It says, "In memory of Nicolas Bon." I never had the pleasure of meeting Nicolas. He was a German poet, but I so much love to translate him from the German, and this is what I love about translation, is that when I get a good poem down, I can still learn so much, and I'm always, I've not given up on learning from anyone. I try to be open to everything. So, Nicolas Born died in 1979 of cancer, and he was 42 years old. I should say parenthetically that this poem was imaginary when I wrote it, but now I dedicate it to Lily, who couldn't be here with us today. So this is "If Only." If only you could walk into that movie unnoticed, playing the character who is really Mia Farrow, but it could be you. If only you could walk into the front of a book and leave by the back. Let me not forget, it is sweeter to love you than not to. My feeling is that spring will welcome everyone. Our dogs plan our lives, and not the other way around. The sea says, shh, to children, like a teacher. Everywhere air enters the lungs and leaves a different air. Get all the oxygen you can, long-distance runner, mountain climber of my life. I too have need of exhaustion. I too count on a brave and different day. And I promised a member of the audience that I would read my new poem. It's called "To a Painter." And this is kind of an imaginary poem, but it's based on all the good fortune I've had to meet painters. I'm from New Orleans, so I know some from New Orleans and some in Austin. And this is kind of imaginary and drawn out of all that experience. To a painter. More than the hummingbird motionless before a flower, even more than a whale within the range of touch, do your brushstrokes astonish me. I see something turning into itself. I see something blue in tension with something else red. I too have the will, but not your patience, so I use the stuff of which can be found in any dictionary. Are we very different? Look, the squirrel is going through its declensions. The vowels of sparrows emerge loud and clear. Paint those sounds, or rather, that which delivers them. I will be standing by. I will be wanting to copy you in words. I'll do two more. This poem is called Brief Epistemology. And just to remind you about epistemology, it's just a fancy word that I sort of think is studying about knowledge. And knowledge comes very directly into this poem. As a kid, I never thought about words, singing among other words without pianos, or about colors in tension with other colors, or about how a building, a beautiful one, seemed no different in spirit than a doghouse. Later, that knowledge came like self-consciousness. The seasons opened their doors. Birds meant more. I took up languages that lead one to one's own. I took up whistling just for the hell of it. Justice arrived, saints presided, cats stretched. There were, in fact, a lot more yeses than nos. Love, when you listen to me, they're your words, and I'm listening. And the last one is called In Praise of Those Drawn to Mankind. Cats seem more educated than dogs. Dogs seem more pragmatic than cats. The one wise, the other all energy. I compare them because even in late middle age, I still cannot decide which to prefer. Like both, I'd like to feel welcome anywhere. I need the great confidence they have in us. I need to be secure with just one suit of clothes, one kind of food, day in, day out. Dear furry things, teach me your humility, that I may lie down among you, content. Teach me something about size, how the biggest isn't always the most lovely, the surest. And should another of you make another child happy, no gift is too much, after all. Be sure that you are the real peacemakers of the earth, the spirits, the bridges, the angels. Thank you.